football enthusiasts. I'm Zeinbricker here with Mr. Chris for a football talk show. We're going to start with the Texas-Alabama game, obviously the number 1 ranked team. Took down to the wire by Texas. So, Mr. Chris, how do you feel about that?
That was a nail biter. I kind of had mixed feelings going into the game. I know there's a lot of talk about Texas being back every year, and I didn't buy into it, even with the quarterback transfer, Quinn Ewers, and he gets hurt early in the game. And I thought for sure once he went out, like, they didn't have a chance. And I was really impressed. Texas defense really showed up. I think if you would have told Texas fans going into that game that you have the reigning Heisman Trophy winning quarterback coming in and you're gonna have that like a 1-score game or maybe even a tie game at halftime, like that's a dream for Texas right there. So there was a questionable no call on a Texas, Texas defense almost got a safety early in the game there, and when Texas ends up losing by 1 and then there's like 2-point swing like that could have been big. Texas also missed a pretty easy field goal right before half.
Yeah.
But that was it was an impressive game to see Alabama respond. I knew when Texas left that minute and a half on the clock, I knew they were going to lose.
Yeah, I felt that too. But I also feel like if Quinn Ewers would have been healthy the whole game, I feel like they definitely would have won. And then their backup was banged up as well.
Yeah, he sprained his ankle. He was like trying to throw he couldn't put any weight on it.
Yeah.
And the fact that their defense kept him in, they got a great running back too, Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, he's really good.
But Texas did impress me, impressive in a loss, but still good showing by Texas, and maybe they are finally moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Next, we're going to do the Sun Belt upsets. So Texas A&M loses at home to Appalachian State, which they've been decent. But to lose at your own field with a team like that, you're paying them $1.5 million.
I saw that. That was embarrassing.
And Nebraska as well, they lost to Georgia Southern, and they're paying them $1.5 million as well.
Coming back to Indiana, Marshall went up.
Yeah.
South Bend beat Notre Dame. Earlier in the season, it wasn't last week, but Old Dominion beat Virginia.
Yeah.
And then Coastal Carolina's 2-0. They've been a pretty good college football team for a couple of years now. So Sun Belt's playing some good football.
Yeah, I feel like the transport has a little bit to do with that. But
I think so too, and I think maybe some of these teams will think twice about scheduling a Sun Belt team in the future. It's not really a gimme win. They're going to come and play football, and that's their Super Bowl. That's their biggest game of the year. Marshall's not going to play a game all year that's bigger than going to Notre Dame, so good for them.
So then with the upset of Nebraska, Scott Frost got fired. It seemed inevitable. He had kind of underperformed. I feel bad for him though. That was his school that he played at. He excelled there, but I feel bad, but he just didn't get the job done, honestly.
I agree that it was a long time coming. I think everyone that watches college football knew that the writing's on the wall for Scott Frost, and I don't think anyone really predicted that they were going to lose that game. But I wrote down that he was 16-31 as a head coach, and that's not going to cut it. If you're in Nebraska, though, my first thought when you fire him is that was supposed to be your guy. I'm pretty sure he won a national championship as a player there.
Yeah.
He was born and raised in Nebraska. Now, that's your dream hire scenario to hire Scott Frost. Where do you go from here? How do you move on from that?
What coach do you have next? I don't know who's even a candidate for that job. They're talking about the Cincinnati coach, but I don't think I don't think there's a chance he leaves.
I think Cincinnati's a better job, honestly, than Nebraska right now. So
yeah. So, and with the Sun Belt upsets, the Notre Dame quarterback is out for the year. They already started 0-2. If you're a Notre Dame fan, it can't be worse than this. And they're probably, I think they're lucky if they make a bowl game, but that's just me.
Yeah, Notre Dame, I wrote down that they played Cal this weekend, and Cal's 2-0, University of California.
Yeah.
So they got an undefeated team coming in, and maybe, I don't know, maybe the backup is going to spark something.
Yeah.
But the style of quarter play that the starter played, the style of quarterback that he played, running around and stuff, being that dual threat, that kind of exposes yourself to injury. And then 2 interceptions, no touchdowns on the year. So it's not like he was carrying the team. The defense is good enough to help carry that team, I think. But they got to figure out some offense because it looks real bad right now. And I know. Go ahead.
I don't think it's all on Marcus Freeman either. I feel like he's doing what he can, but it's just rough for them at this point, honestly.
That was my next question. Is Marcus Freeman the next Scott Frost? He was supposed to be the one to bring Notre Dame back. Brian Kelly could never win the big game.
Yeah, I think eventually he will. I think he's got to get some time to recruit because, I mean, it's all Kelly's recruits right now. I feel like once he gets some more recruits in there, it'll be better for him.
In his defense, he does have a very highly ranked recruiting class. Like if you follow recruiting rankings and players, he's killing it on the recruiting trail. But going 0-3 this week, that would be a really 0-4 because he coached the bowl game.
Yeah.
But 0-3 this season would be a really rough start. I'm kind of rooting for Notre Dame this week. The Pac-12 is a pretty weak conference, so just because Cal's 2-0 doesn't really mean anything. And I like Marcus Freeman as a coach. He's a good human in general. So I'd like to see him get a win and maybe start to turn the season around.
Yeah, I mean I'm a Purdue fan, so Notre Dame's not my favorite team, but I mean I prefer them to win this week. But I mean, next point is these kickers. I mean, like they're missing everything. It feels like I don't know if it's the holders or maybe it's the balls, but like
college kickers are notorious. So if week 1 North Carolina played Appalachian State, there were some mixed field goals in there, and that game ended up going to overtime. We've already talked about the Texas game. They missed that. That would have gave them the leg up. College kickers are just notoriously unreliable.
Yeah, the East Carolina kicker week 1, I mean, he missed like 2, like basically gimmies. I mean, lost the game for. I mean, the North Carolina State was a pretty highly ranked opponent. I think 14 at the time. And I mean, you have a chance to beat him, you want to, but missed the extra point and missed the field goal to win.
Just by comparison, you look at NFL. If you look at like some of the Sunday players, you look at NFL kickers, they're regularly hitting 45, 47-yard field goals like it's nothing. And then some of these, colleges are like missing, like Texas missed like a 30-yarder.
Yeah.
It's rough.
So next, we're gonna do our favorite teams results. So Purdue played Indiana State. I mean, obviously it was 56-0. It was just a beatdown. But Ohio State played Arkansas State.
Arkansas State Red Wolves, yes sir.
They handled it pretty well.
They look pretty good. I think even in those easier games, like I think both teams played a lesser opponent. There's still some positives you can take away. So for Ohio State, their defense didn't allow a touchdown. I think they allowed 4 field goals. But if you let your opponent get in the red zone and you hold them to 3, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of emphasis put on Ohio State's defense this year. So even playing a lesser opponent, I think there's positives, both for Purdue and Ohio State that you can take away. Looking ahead this week, Ohio State has Toledo on the schedule, so still not a very formidable opponent. I think Toledo's a MAC school, so it's an early game for Ohio State, so that should be an easy win. And then next week starts Big Ten play for Ohio State, so they're looking ahead to Wisconsin. It's a night game next week at Ohio State.
Yeah, Purdue has Syracuse this week, but they're predicted to lose for the spreads and all that.
Really?
I mean, I don't think it's I mean, it might be close, but I think Purdue's got it. And then the week after that is, I think Purdue plays Florida Atlantic. They start they had their first conference game against Penn State, and then the week after that, I think they play Maryland. I think for their second conference game. But one of the last things is what are your thoughts on the mega conferences?
So I'm not a big fan. There's a lot of realignment going on in college football, and I think ultimately when it's all said and done, what's going to happen is you're almost going to have like an AFC, NFC situation like you have in the NFL, and I don't think that's good for college football. You start talking about expanding the playoffs or making these mega conferences, and ultimately the small schools are going to be the ones that suffer for that.
Yeah.
And realistically, Indiana State has no chance of ever winning a significant game. They're a very small school. Their budget's very small for the program, but there's still a benefit to having that. And when you start, those small schools like that are going to be the ones left out of these mega conferences, and you're going to start to see football programs eliminated.
Yeah, I'm against them as well. You'll get you'll have, to me, the Big Ten adding UCLA and USC makes no sense. They're all the way out in California and they're playing in a Midwest conference. I mean, it'll be exciting to see, I guess, how they react to playing in Iowa or somewhere cold in the middle of November. But, I mean, I think it's not very good for football. I like the smaller conferences because it's more rivalry, in my opinion, because you can play almost everybody in your conference every year, or at least rotate it around. But
I agree. The Big Ten's footprint's really big right now, too, because you got all the way out to Nebraska. Well, before you had the Pac-12 teams, you're getting Nebraska, and then Rutgers, New Jersey on the other end there. So it's a pretty wide spread. But I think there could have been like USC maybe joining like the Big 12, like Utah's out there. Texas, I know Texas is joining the SEC now, and Oklahoma is too. But I think there's some regional opponents that they could have figured some stuff. Oregon's still like a good school, and you're gonna get some teams left out. And I don't think it's going in the right direction, but they're just chasing money. Like it's all about money, unfortunately.
Yeah, for me the Big 12, like especially with losing Texas, Oklahoma, like they need other teams to support, like BYU or like some Mountain West schools, or even Utah. But like to me, it's going too far. Almost like 16 team conferences, 20 team conferences is where we're heading. I don't think it looks very good.
And you're not going to be able to play like every opponent every year. And like it will be cool to see like USC go to like Happy Valley, like play Penn State, or like go to East Lansing in the wintertime or something like that. But really, that's an every other year thing, because every other year they're going to be home, and it just the budget for the school is going to get out of control for travel.
Yeah. You have anything else?
I had a few things for. One upset I think I'm looking at this week is Liberty plays Wake Forest. Wake Forest is ranked.
Yeah.
And last I checked, the line for that was Liberty plus 16.5. And Liberty has a pretty good football team.
Yeah, they're not bad.
So I think my upset of the week is taking Liberty in the points there.
Okay. If I had upset of the week, I feel like I don't think BYU is going to perform as well as they did against Baylor. They still might win, but I don't think they're going to be. I think they're going to drop in the rankings a little bit.
Okay, so if you had to pick a winner from that BYU-Oregon game, even outright, no points, who would you take?
I'd still probably take Oregon, but
really?
I don't think. I don't know. I think BYU might have it, but I don't think it's going to be as what the spread says.
I think BYU is going to win that game. I think the Oregon football program is in a bad place. Not to take away anything that Georgia did to them, but I think that was more of a reflection of how bad Oregon is right now and not how great Georgia is. Georgia's a good team, don't get me wrong, but I think Oregon's a lot worse than a lot of people anticipated. I expect BYU to win this game outright.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that'll conclude it. So
check back next week and see how accurate we were.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.